Hey, it's Adam Grant from Work Life, a podcast from TED. This episode is brought to you by Freshworks. Freshworks believes that complexity is the enemy of efficiency. So stop wrestling with bloated, expensive service software that takes forever to implement and update, where ROI is someday, not today. You've been overcharged and underserved for way too long. Uncomplicate with Freshservice for IT and Freshdesk for customer support. And with Freshworks AI-assisted service software, you'll work smarter, not harder. Freshworks uncomplicates. Learn more at freshworks.com.
It's Saturday, the 2nd of August. I'm Ciara Revens, and this was a week that saw Donald Trump in Scotland, pressure mount on Israel over Gaza, the Lionesses make history in Switzerland, and Ozzy Osbourne laid to rest.
Grab a cup of something hot, put up your feet, and get up to speed on the 7 biggest stories of the week. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7.
It's news,
but not the news.
This week saw US President Donald Trump set up camp in Scotland. He arrived on Friday evening and was busy playing golf at his 2 Scottish courses and squeezing in a bit of official business in between. Sunday night saw EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen meet Trump in his clubhouse to finalise details of a US-EU trade deal that will see tariffs set at 15%. Trump hailed the agreement as one of the biggest of all time, but he also wandered off into a 3-minute rant about wind energy.
We will not allow a windmill to be built in the United States. They're killing us. They're killing the beauty of our scenery. It's a horrible thing. It's the most expensive form of energy. It's no good. They're made in China. When they start to rust and rot in 8 years, you can't really turn them off. You can't bury them. They won't let you bury the propellers.
Von der Leyen was pleased at the deal, hailing a new era of stability, although the tariffs on steel and aluminium will remain at 50%.
I want to thank President Trump personally for his personal commitment and leadership to achieve this breakthrough. He's a tough negotiator, but he is also a deal maker.
Donald Trump continued his stay in Scotland on Monday, which led to the slightly odd spectacle of UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer being welcomed on UK soil by the US President. The two men discussed trade, Gaza, Ukraine and presumably golf. And the rapport that Starmer has established with Trump seemed to hold up reasonably well. There was a moment when Trump was asked about London and he began to criticise Mayor Sadiq Khan. But Starmer interjected to say, "He's a friend of mine." Talk also turned to Trump's official state visit in September, and the PM was busy talking up how special it will be.
This is an unprecedented and very special state visit. This has never been done before. There'll be many elements of it that have never been seen before. So this is going to be a historic occasion, and we're all very much looking forward to it.
Trump largely stayed on message, although he did at one point suggest Scotland should get most of the benefits of the new US-UK trade deal and promoted his 2 golf clubs. Things went somewhat off the rails when he asked about Jeffrey Epstein, and he clearly couldn't settle on the appropriate tone for his response.
And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down.
Donald Trump wrapped up his Scottish tour on Tuesday. He officially opened his new 36-hole links course, which he dedicated to his mother, who originally came from Scotland. He also met with Scottish First Minister John Sweeney, who he hailed as a very special guy, although he didn't commit to taking any action on whiskey tariffs for his new friend. Trump also had more kind words for UK PM Keir Starmer before he left, thanking him for being very gracious. The US President is due back in September for his 2nd official state visit, but before he signed off, he made time for some humble bragging.
As you know, we stopped a war, but we stopped about 5 wars, so that's much more important than playing golf. As much as I like it, it's much more important.
This week has seen growing international pressure on Israel as a clearer picture emerged of the starvation in Gaza caused by Israelis' blockade of aid. Last weekend saw the first airdrops of aid from Jordan and the UAE, while Israel announced what it called tactical pauses in fighting during daylight hours around Gaza City and Deir al-Balah to allow more aid to flow. There's been increasing pressure on Prime Minister Keir Starmer to join French President Macron and recognise the Palestinian state to give those in Gaza a firm firmer footing for a ceasefire. 220 MPs have written to the PM to ask for him to act. Treasury Secretary James Murray said recognition is a complex process.
You can only recognise a state once, and so we need to make sure that when we do that, we use it to maximum effect to galvanise change. He's working with international allies to get that pathway to peace, and that pathway to peace has to bring immediate relief to people on the ground.
The weekend saw Band-Aid founder Bob Geldof add his voice to those calling for action and an urgent increase in the level of food and medical supplies for the territory. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch was taking a more generous approach to the Israeli actions.
What I'm seeing is Israel allowing humanitarian aid to go in. This has been an unbelievably difficult situation. And what we all want to see is this awful war coming to an end. And that will happen when those hostages are released. We need a ceasefire.
Israeli politicians continued to push back on Monday against the accusations that Gaza is facing a famine. However, the IDF did continue with humanitarian pauses in fighting to allow aid to flow into the territory. There were also additional airdrops from an estimated 180 trucks of food, and aid were expected to have arrived by the end of Monday. Tom Fletcher is the UN's aid chief, and he said that while it's good that aid is starting to flow, the crisis remains very real.
It's the beginning, but the next few days are really make or break. We need to deliver at a much, much greater scale. We need vast amounts of aid going in much faster.
Even Donald Trump conceded that there is starvation in Gaza, and the UK's Secretary of State for Business and Trade, Jonathan Reynolds, says it's important to use the international pressure to make a real difference.
We've got to use this as a galvanising moment towards a proper peace process, a proper settlement, to say we will not tolerate the kind of suffering we are seeing, but we don't just want to stop that for the short term. We want that ended.
On Tuesday, Keir Starmer finally played his cards after an emergency cabinet meeting.
The UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza.
The gambit appears to be to threaten Israel with recognition of Palestine in the hope that it will force both sides to the table and a ceasefire can be implemented. The immediate Israeli reaction was to describe the UK's position as a reward for Hamas, but Jan England of the Norwegian Refugee Council said the only hope is if Western allies apply consistent pressure to Israel.
The ball is solidly in the court of Trump, Starmer, Macron, Merz. They have supported Netanyahu. They need to exert much more pressure. If not, they will be accomplices.
More deaths from malnutrition were reported on Wednesday in Gaza, according to the Hamas-run Ministry of Health. 14 other nations, including Canada, have now joined with France in signing a declaration that says they either already have or are willing to recognise a Palestinian state. The BBC's Today Show wanted to know from Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander if the UK government's pledge is just gesture politics.
We have had a long-standing commitment as the Labour Party to recognise the state of Palestine. We believe that the moment is now in order to try and use this diplomatic lever to build international consensus.
US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff travelled to Israel and Gaza on Friday, along with US Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee. Witkoff's boss Donald Trump posted on Thursday evening that Hamas should surrender and release the hostages, but the visit does suggest that the growing international pressure on Israel is beginning to pay off. Canadian PM Mark Carney is one of those pledging to recognise the Palestinian state in September at the UN.
Canada has long been committed to a two-state solution. An independent, viable and sovereign Palestinian state living with the state of Israel in peace and security.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer had been criticised for his attempt to use recognition as a bargaining tool, and he was accused of moral failure by one of the released British Israeli hostages on Thursday. He clarified his position and said he is listening to the hostages but is committed to the plan.
Those hostages need to be released immediately. The situation on the ground in Gaza needs to change. There's a humanitarian catastrophe, and that's why I've said that unless that changes, then we will recognise Palestine.
Monday saw a surge in downloads for what is known as VPNs. They're virtual private networks and they allow you to change your browsing location. And the reason they become so popular is the Online Safety Act. A new provision of the Act kicked in last weekend, which means that if you're in search of adult content, you'll have to verify your age if you're in the UK. Not everyone browsing adult content is keen on posting a live selfie. However, hence the rise in VPNs, which will help to obscure your actual location. Reform were the first party to respond, promising to bin the Act if they got into power, which might suggest they know their audience. Online safety campaigner Andy Burrows says it's important to remember the purpose of the Act.
The many years that it took to get the Online Safety Act on the statute book, there was strong cross-party consensus that we needed to act decisively to protect children. Now, if Nigel Farage wants to break down that cross-party consensus, it would be really deeply regrettable.
The Online Safety Act was passed in 2023 and its primary purpose was to prevent or suppress harmful content from being available to children. However, 2 years later, it's causing all kinds of controversy after one of its key provisions finally took effect with the implementation of the rule by Ofcom, and it sparked a bitter row between Labour and Reform. Reform chairman Zia Youssef had pledged to scrap the law if they came into power, and Nigel Farage backed him, which attracted sharp criticism from Technology Secretary Peter Kyle.
You know, we have people out there who are extreme pornographers. Make no mistake about it, if people like Jimmy Savile were alive today, he'd be perpetrating his crimes online. And Nigel Farage is saying that he's on their side.
Those comments didn't calm things down, funnily enough, with Farage outraged at the Labour minister's response.
Absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. To compare anybody's actions with the vile Jimmy Savile is completely below the belt. Yes, there's to and fro in politics. This was appalling. All I asked for was an apology, and he simply doubled down.
Apart from rows about online safety, Wednesday morning saw the 5-day resident doctor strike come to an end, but there's no end in sight to the long-running dispute over pay. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, has refused to engage with the BWMA on their demand for a 29% pay rise, which is intended to address pay cuts since 2008. He maintains that the doctors have already had a 22% pay rise over the last 2 years, and that while he's prepared to talk about conditions or other benefits, pay has to be off the table. There's been concerns over the impact of the strikes on the NHS, but Chair of the BMA, Dr Tom Dolphin, was critical of how the service covered the strike's shortfalls.
NHS England, on previous occasions, have said we should cancel the elective care and postpone people's appointments, etc., so that the senior doctors can be released. That's what makes it safe. And NHS England decided to do it the other way.
It's been just over a week since Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn announced that he's starting a new political party with fellow Labour rebel Zara Sultana. They claim that over 500,000 people have already signed up for a party that is intending to be essentially the opposite of reform. There are a couple of issues. They don't have a name. They're using the name Your Party, but are waiting for the members to make the final decision on what to call it. The other issue is that so far they only have 2 MPs, but Corbyn is sounding positive about the party's future.
What I don't want is endless battles over who's controlling which committee, The way you keep a party together is by going forward on campaigning fundamental issues, peace, social justice in this country. The other parties, all of them, are actually appeasing what reforms say.
While the world has been focused on Gaza, Russia has continued wave after wave of attacks on Ukraine cities. On his Scottish visit, Donald Trump was asked about the 50-day window he's given Vladimir Putin, and it seemed as though the US president was considering applying more pressure sooner. Keir Starmer has patiently been making the case for more support for Ukraine, but Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was painting a different picture at a press conference on Monday.
For the first time in history, Russia is fighting alone against the entire West. In World War I and World War II, we had allies. Now, we have no allies on the battlefield. That means we must rely solely on ourselves.
Even after Donald Trump's confirmed a new deadline for Russia, which has shrunk from 50 days to 10 days, there doesn't seem to have been much impact on Vladimir Putin. Tuesday saw one of the deadliest attacks by Russia on a Ukrainian target, as 25 people were killed in a wave of attacks, including convicts at a prison in Zaporizhzhia. There's no sign of any let-up in Russia's night attacks, and President Zelensky was calling for a very tough, very fair sanctions until the killing stops. Press Secretary for Vladimir Putin, Dmitry Peskov, wasn't making making any concessions though.
We have taken note of President Trump's statement. The special military operation is ongoing. We remain committed to solving the conflict around Ukraine and securing our interests in the course of that resolution.
Still to come on the Standout 7, in association with Metro, the Lionesses make history and the world narrowly avoids a disaster.
Right after this.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at vanta.com.
Welcome back.
Last Sunday evening saw the Women's Euro final in Basel in Switzerland as reigning champions England took on Spain. The Spanish side scored first, but a goal from Alessia Russo put England back in it. The game went to extra time and then penalties. Once again, Chloe Kelly was the hero with the winning penalty to see Serena Wiegman's side retain their title.
I was cool, I was composed, and I knew I was going to hit the back of the net. I don't miss penalties twice. Unbelievable, not just the team of staff behind us. 23 players, all the staff behind us, and Serena Wiegman, she's done it again.
It's a unique achievement by an England team to retain a major title on the road, and the victory was anything but easy. Stats show that Serena Wiegman's team only led for 4.5 minutes across the entire tournament, but pure grit and team spirit got them through 2 penalty shootouts and to the winner's podium. They arrived back on Monday, but the bad news is there won't be a bank holiday to celebrate their victory, although there was a formal reception at 10 Downing Street and there was an official event on Tuesday. Manager Serena Wiegman was delighted with the response to her team's victory.
I feel so much respect from England and from the royal family too. And I think that's the most important thing. And yeah, feeling valued, and it's very special to get so much respect from England.
England's Lionesses were still celebrating on Tuesday with over 65,000 England fans turning out to meet the winning squad as they progressed through London on an open-top bus. England captain Leah Williamson said the fan support means the world.
I've been crying all the way down the mile. This is unbelievable. It's probably one of the best things we've ever been a part of. So thank you for coming out. There's lots of ways to win a football match, and we repeatedly did it the hard way. But I think that you can see how much we care about playing for England, how much we love it.
One of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded struck a remote region of Russia on Wednesday morning, triggering tsunami warnings across the Pacific Ocean. The quake, which measured 8.8 on the Richter scale, hit the Kamchatka Peninsula, a remote region which is prone to both earthquakes and volcanoes. Fortunately, the earthquake appears to have occurred at a relatively shallow depth, which limited the impact, or it could have been a serious natural disaster, as Professor Harold Tobin of the University of Washington explained.
Probably the 6th or 7th largest earthquake we've ever recorded since at least the year 1900. The largest earthquakes on the planet are these ones that happen offshore and typically do trigger very large tsunamis. So it's the biggest event since the Japan 2011 one.
Tsunami alerts were sounded from Hawaii to Japan and even as far as Australia and New Zealand, which gave people time to evacuate. While the tsunami didn't hit at the scale that was feared, oceanographer Dr. Simon Boxall says the ripple effect may be felt for quite some time.
The concern is, of course, that it's not just that initial earthquake. There's likely to be aftershocks, and they can also generate tsunamis. Plus the fact that the waves themselves, as they sort of move across the Pacific, so, the Pacific will be on alert really for the next 48 hours.
It turned out to be a strange week for travellers, as on Wednesday evening London's airspace closed abruptly after an apparent radar failure that left hundreds of flights grounded at short notice, and the government has been scrambling to figure out what exactly went on. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander said on Thursday that early indications are it was an isolated incident and that there was no evidence of malign activity after she met with the head of the UK's Air Traffic Control Service. Travel expert Simon Calder says that's not much comfort to those who missed their holiday flights, and he says airlines are furious.
Honestly, if you get
any disruption, there's this domino delay effect, which just means that, particularly in London, there's simply no way to recover.
Graham Lake is a former Director General of the Civil Air Navigation Services Organisation, and he says that actually the UK's airspace functions remarkably well.
The point is that you have to plan for them. And if you look at the minutes of outage over a period of years, your availability, system availability is frankly very, very good. So I think it's unrealistic to expect a system where you have no technical failure.
Wednesday saw the funeral of heavy metal legend Ozzy Osbourne in his beloved Birmingham. Black Sabbath were fiercely proud of their Birmingham origins, and there's a bridge in the city named after the band, where the funeral procession paused as a mark of respect. Tens of thousands turned out to celebrate the life of the man who was twice inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and who died just a couple of weeks after the band's farewell concert in Villa Park. Wife Sharon, son Jack and daughter Kelly led the mourners before a private funeral, and these fans were sad to see the Prince of Darkness for one last time.
He's our Brummie, we love him so much. He put Birmingham on the map, and he's so down to earth, he's going to be so greatly missed. Just look at all these people, thousands that have come out as a tribute to him.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Hi, this is Joe from Vanta. In today's digital world, compliance regulations are changing constantly, and earning customer trust has never mattered more. Vanta helps companies get compliant fast and stay secure with the most advanced AI, automation, and continuous monitoring out there. So whether you're a startup going for your first SOC 2 or ISO 27001, or a growing enterprise managing vendor risk, Vanta makes it quick, easy, and scalable. And I'm not just saying that because I work here. Get started at Vanta.com.